In many instances in relation to this particular command paper, all we had was formulaic responses. So on the one side, we had a petition from those that were in favor of the amendments being made to civil marriage laws, and on the other side, we had a formulaic letter which was being signed repeatedly by people and sent in by those who were against. If you were to weigh it in terms of responses only, I think from memory it's about 73% were in favor of the change and 27 were either against the change or thought we should have a referendum on the subject. If it were therefore a plebiscite, those that were in favor of proceeding for the change would have won. But that was not the sort of consultation we were doing. We were doing a consultation of substance, not of numbers. What we were asking people for was where they thought the substance of this needed to be changed or not addressed. That was very detailed work. I created an inter-ministerial committee with different ministers to look at the detail of this. We didn't just look at the responses we had in writing. We also went out and looked at detailed engagement with people. We've had 4 or 5 different groups in, both in favor and against the measure, and we've made amendments to our legislation which has taken into consideration a lot of what they put to us. That's a detailed, substantive consultation, and that's the sort of consultation that we have really engaged in. This has not just been lip service consultation, this has been detailed, hard work consultation.
The government is extremely keen to point out that the amendment is to the Civil Marriage Act and will not affect religious matrimony. Yet in the UK, churches have felt under pressure.
Well, Gibraltar is completely different to the UK. We have a written constitution which protects religious freedom, and then we have a Civil Marriage Act. So the Constitution protects the rights of individuals in recognized religions to have their religion and their views protected and their sacraments protected. That's why we refer to the sacrament of holy marriage, holy matrimony, and we refer to the rights of marriage in all the other religions which are not the Catholic religion. We are adding a layer of protection in our civil marriage law. We're specifically providing that those of the religions which are recognized in the Constitution cannot be in any way considered to have been changed or affected by this amendment to our Civil Marriage Act. Now, the only thing that the government does or can do is in the civil sphere create partnerships that are also in some instances today called marriages, and that in the future will be called marriages even if they're those that today are only called partnerships. That's all we are dealing with. And what we want to be very clear about is that is the only area where the government has any competence. That's the only thing that we today deal with. It's the only thing that we will be dealing with in the future, and that is what we are changing. We are not changing the issues that people consider to be their religion and the way that their religious rights are entered into and eligibility to enter into those religious rights.
Do you envisage it being passed unanimously? Because you do say ministers have a free vote, but of course you've already expressed your own personal views.
I don't know whether it will be passed unanimously or not, and I don't think that is the issue, to tell you the truth. We go to Parliament and we vote our consciences. I don't ask any of my colleagues to vote in a particular way because I whip them in a particular way. That's not the sort of government that I run. My view is that this is something that it is right for us to do. And what has become very, very clear is that people accepted the Civil Partnerships Act was a right thing to do. And even those who advocate against us changing the civil marriage laws tell us that we did a very, very good Civil Partnerships Act, better even than the act in the United Kingdom. And that therefore those who are of the same sex have all the rights that married couples now have in civil marriage because of our Civil Partnerships Act, and that therefore there's no need, they say, to change the Civil Marriage Act. Well, actually, therefore, all that we are left with is an argument over a word in the civil law. Forget the law of religion and the law of God as different people might see it. All we're left with is whether or not we apply the label of marriage to same-sex unions, which today can only be called civil partnerships. In my view, therefore, we have ended up with an argument over form, not an argument of substance, because even those who are against civil marriage extending to same-sex couples believe that all the rights of civil marriage already attach. And when it comes to that, my view is very clearly that we have to have no discrimination, that this is not a society that should be determined by its prejudices that future generations will not understand why some can enter marriages and some can only enter partnerships, and that the time has come to act. When I started this process 5 years ago as Chief Minister, I didn't believe there was a good reason for civil marriage to be extended to same-sex couples. Today, my view has changed. I have been on a journey myself of understanding. I've been on a journey of addressing those prejudices, and I think the community has been too. I think we've had a fantastic debate. GBC was part of it. We've seen played out in the pages of newspapers like the Chronicle and Panorama. We've seen people address those issues for themselves, and I think our community will be in a much better place when we have a civil marriage law for all, regardless of sexual orientation. People have expressed it in terms of love wins. I don't know whether that's the right way of putting it or not, but I do think that 30 years from now, people will look back, and perhaps those of us who were previously against civil marriage extending to same-sex partners might have been seen, as we now look back and see racists from the 1960s who might not have allowed a colored person to be on the same bus as a white person or eat in the same restaurant as a white person.